You and I are saying our final goodbyes to the rack. Whoa. Smog's pretty bad out. What's up, guys? So today I wanted to go on hop on Instagram live just to like hit you guys up and let you guys know what's going on with the whole like moving shit. But I figured I'm just gonna make a video. It's way easier for me. And I don't want to waste anyone's time. I found like on my Instagram live video I rambled a lot. I don't want to do that, so figured might as well show you what's the progress. So a lot of my gear is gone, but it's just scratching the surface. This is more of like a ball hair of the gear I have kicking around, but I figured like this is like part of my main rig. So I'm selling all of it, but I wanted to go over each piece because I figured there's some plugin versions of them as well. And for the people who are acquiring the gear, a lot of it's been spoken for already. You can see how I use it in a mastering context, and then yeah, see if you guys can get some good use out of it. Alright guys, so I'm gonna reveal the sauce, or a little bit of what makes up for the sauce. I guess I'll go over my mastering chain because you guys can see what mastering kind of entails and stuff. So first things first, I work in a lot of hard-hitting genres, but most people, when they send in their stems, usually it's exported right off Ableton, they're hitting shit really hard into the red. So a lot of the analog gear that I use isn't made for that kind of volume. So the first thing I go into is my Neve summing unit here. This is the MCM-8 Mkii, so they have a much improved noise floor. And then I just use this to, you know, trim it back a little bit. We get a little bit of summing as well because the audio comes in really hard. So you get a little bit of that crosstalk, so your center comes out a little bit more. Because sometimes I like to clip the output section here, I get a little bit of headroom. So that's how I get, you know, I don't have to squash things as hard, and I can turn things up a little bit louder. As compared to if you're working in the box, it's just a little bit easier to achieve that. Not saying that you can't do it in the box, but obviously a lot easier if you use analog hardware because they have a much wider sweet spot. Usually when I do stem masters, I ask for 4 stereo stems. So the first stereo stem would be vocals, obviously, very important. And then I'll ask for drum, bass, and everything else. It goes out into here where I am summing and trimming at the same time, so I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I don't want to patch too many cables and stuff too, because you know, signal degrades as you use more and more cable length. So I try to keep my cable length short. I try to use tools that can achieve more than one thing at the same time. So just a quick note while I'm at it, I want to shout out Heritage Audio for making a really nice clean Neve 80 series and summing flavor. Go check those guys out. They do really good gear for really good prices. And also shout out to this is their 500 series of their RAM system. And basically what this is a mastering grade monitor controller. So I'm going from my converters into this, and this is adjusting the trim and source for my trios. It also supports a little Bluetooth, which is kind of cool. If you got clients over all the time and they want to reference stuff off their phone, off their Spotify playlist, this is 2020 minimum requirements right here. So definitely yes. The headphone amp on here is actually surprisingly nice. It's really big, warm, not a lot of noise, and it can push out quite a lot of gain. So I'm using that to drive something that requires, you know, quite a bit of juice, maybe some high impedance headphones. You might want to drive that with that. It can take 2 sources, so I can patch in, say, if I'm doing converter shootouts. I did one with Metric Halo. You can see the article that I did for them. But we patched the Metric Halo in front here. We patched the Symphony into the back, and then I was switching between sources. So yeah, shout out Heritage Audio, man. Gang. You really have to watch your gain staging when using analog gear. It's not like digital where like shit's kind of done under the hood. You really have to watch how you hit shit. So sometimes I'll hit it hard if I want to get headroom, like I said, but most of the time I'm just trimming it back to make sure that it's, you know, going into the gear properly and dressing them up really nice till the end. So mastering is not about how much you can do, I try not to fuck with my client shit too much. So usually right at the trim, I'm trying to go from starting point to finish line as fast as I can. I'll go through the massive passive usually because I just love the sound that it gives. I had a little dilemma between this versus the mastering version, but I ended up going with this guy because the mastering version doesn't have as much range. And in hip hop and shit, you know, we're all about pushing as hard as we can. So the other one didn't have as much range, couldn't really push it as hard. Though the filters on this cut a little bit too high and a little bit too low. So for rock is good if you want to like smooth out overheads that's a bit wishy-washy, or like, you know, software guitar, amp sims, like iRig and shit. This is really good for cleaning that up. Oh yeah, quick trick you can do with the Massivo. Sorry, I'm all over the place. At the back, if you look at the connectors, there is a XLR end for balance, and there's also a 1/4 inch end called unbalance. And the other day I was watching Michael Brower. He's also selling all his gear, kind of exactly what I'm doing. He was saying something about his API EQ or compressor, something about a Paul Wolf era, so basically a very early unit. This Manley massive passive is also a very early unit. You can see the transformer at the back is like massive and rusted and stuff, but still kicking away, still working. And basically what he did was, you know, when he moved into his new studio, he had his API unit a lot further, so longer cable run. Tech that he had at the studio said, you know what, I can rewire your API to be balanced so then you can do longer cable runs. And Michael was like, oh yeah, sure, okay, cool, that sounds good. After he did it, patched it in to use on a session, he was like, okay, whoa, something is off. Where's all the air? Where is all that? And he's like, I didn't do anything different, I just changed it to balance. And he's like, no. Change it back. I can leave a link to that video in the description. But impedance, you know, just like this right here, impedance does change the sound of the unit, just like Universal Audio will let you know with the unison preamps. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use a little dinky short patch cable that's unbalanced. I'm going to use this in unbalanced mode. And holy motherfuck, Michael, if you're watching this video, you got to try it in unbalanced mode. The air on this thing, holy mother. So just make sure, you know, your power is good, your grounding is good, and everything is good. Your noise is good in your facility. But other than that, man, if you can use this thing in unbalanced mode, there's another whole world that you're about to unlock. So there you go, man. But yeah, these two together, whoo, fire. But yeah, usually I just pass audio through the massive passive, you know, just for its like legendary clean transparent sound. It just opens up the mids, dresses it up nice, and then we're hitting the mastering compressor, man, right away. So this is the dangerous mastering compressor. This is one of my top secret weapons and part of the caveman sound, because with this motherfucker, what you can do is you can knock off up to 20 dB of gain and you don't hear it at all, because it has a dual release stage. One of it is detecting peaks, and then the backside is detecting RMS and loudness. So we have, you know, very transparent limiter. Again, I'm working in mid side, so usually I'm hitting the sides a lot different than the mids. So I'm usually using it in split mode. I know Michael's really gonna like this. The sidechain section here is where the caveman sound is, because if you go into sidechain monitor, you're monitoring, you're listening to what's going on in the sidechain. Sibilance boost, this is actually a high frequency curve that's ported over from the back's EQ. So technically I have a fixed airband from a back's EQ right there. So I like to run, you know, my stuff in mid side. I'll run the sides through here, and I just go sidechain monitor, and I'll go sibilance boost, and that usually opens up some really nice air in the track to start before I even hit the limiter. But if we want to monitor compression, we got to take that off, and we do external sidechain. So basically what I do is external sidechain basically brings in a curve from an external EQ that you make up, and the compressor basically becomes more sensitive to those frequencies that you highlight. Now, because the massive passive, there's nothing quite like it. The bands are interactive, so you can really come up with some really cool organic looking bands that are always going to be natural sounding. So what I'll do is I'll go from my trim into my compressor, hitting it really hard off the bat, and then I'm going into external sidechain, and while it's hitting and compressing really hard, I'm basically telling the compressor, hey, back off this, or hey, push this harder, you know, that kind of thing. And that's what I needed the range for, is because we're knocking off 20 dB. So that mastering fucking range ain't doing shit. So I needed more to tell the compressor, like, yo, listen to here, right? So these two are like my bread and butter for like the caveman sound. Sometimes I'll go into here, I may switch out some modules. So currently the last session that I did, obviously we had a bunch of Neves. So what you do is with this guy, what you can do is you can do just the summing if you want, and these are the trims and these are the pans. You can do the summing if you want, but this allows you to patch in some 500 series modules as well. So this is my match pair of Neves from Sonic Farm. He doesn't like it when I call them Neves because they weren't built that way, but they end up sounding like original vintage Neves if you just pop the transformer in. But what I like about this is you can change the impedance. So this is the vibe switch right here. And yeah, you can add some nice Neve color on the way out to the trim. Sometimes I might pop like an Elysia compressor because this one is really transparent as well. Very snappy, so if you want to add some snap, I add that. Again, rock. I like this SSL compressor better than the Mkii. I know there's some guys who need like the sidechain filter and shit, but part of the SSL G Comp traditionally, and I'm old school, I worked on consoles, so I'm a little bit colored, my opinion, but part of the sound was you ran your shit through on the G Comp, and it does this thing where it just tucks your bottom end, does a really nice high pass lift, and that really helped with taming and tightening out the bottom end and adding some, you know, really serious punch. So when they added that sidechain filter in the Mkii, a lot of EDM guys went, oh, but traditionally, you know, like that is the sound of the G Comp. The minute you add a sidechain into it, I don't know, like it's just a different G Comp flavor, but it's not the traditional, it's just not the way that I'm used to working. But you know, that's why I had this guy instead of the Mkii. This guy is also part of the caveman sound. This is the Empirical Labs De-Esser. So what I do is I wanted a match pair. I ended up just forgetting about it. Again, I work in mid-side, so I might you know, hit the sides harder, take the SS out more so I can bring out more attention to the mids and the lushness of the stuff on the sides, and then, you know, tame it less in the middle so there's more excitement going on, and to open up, you know, more top end for the hi-hats and all that. So SSL and De-Esser, this is like huge for hip-hop. This one's a diode bridge limiter, so this one's like a very vintage 9-inch nails kind of limiter. So I'll use this to nuke guitar subgroups. I'll use this to nuke stems, anything that needs grit. Sometimes vocals as well, if they need a little bit of edge, but they're a little bit sibilant already. I will use this in conjunction with the mid channel where the vocal is, and this one can also double as filters. So these are even more filters. So if I don't want to de-ess, if I want to just commit to a smooth filter, I'll just do that. So I will basically push sibilant vocals through this trashy compressor and just clip it like crazy, and then run that into the de-esser and then smooth it with either filtering or de-essing. So there is the caveman vocal sound, and just a quick rundown of some of the stuff that I use. This is a API 525 legendary compressor, so I use that on my mid and side section as well to create movement. And then this one is just, I don't know, I don't really spend much time with this guy because it's just blah. It's not really a vintage unit. It's kind of a flex. For those of you who must absolutely know what I use the 543 for, as I said, I bought this on a splurge, but not because I just like the look of it, obviously, because it's fucking stupid. But I primarily, almost exclusively use this for 808s. Because if you touch an 808 from Kendrick's engineer, you are fucked. You will not get that gig ever again. So this is a modern Rupert Neve compressor, and I use this to change the direction of 808 sometimes to help them fit in the mix better. It has a very, very clean makeup gain amplifier, and look here. In my research, seldom will you find a feedback style compressor with a ratio of 40:1. This is a feedback style compressor. It can't do feed forward, so it's like a back to the future kind of button. And sometimes I need to go 40:1, but transparent and clean in order to change the direction of an 808 to fit in the mix better. Totally forgot to talk about these guys. Basically what happened with these guys is I had a Strymon Big Sky, and yes, I am that guy who uses reverb in mastering. More on that on a video if you guys want, just leave it in the comments. But basically I was almost exclusively using, I had 1 or 2 patches that I made on the Big Sky that I was using for mastering. I purchased these units so that I can properly send and receive an unbalanced signal from the Big Sky, and then be able to blend that reverb, that wet signal, into the tracks. So this allowed me to do that, but since I sold the Big Sky, these guys are no longer seeing that much use, aside from some of my Oco Diablo or some vintage hand-wired boutique guitar pedals, but no, not very much. I mean, I have like some clipping distortion flavors here too, so yeah, not really getting a lot of love these days. And I guess this last piece leads me to my last piece of advice for this video is, if you're starting out a studio and you want to buy your first analog, serious analog channel strip, I would say get this. This is the Universal Audio 4710D. And the reason is because you get 4 Twinfinity units. They sell these individually for like $700-800, but you get 4 of those in one rack to you. And at the back, you have 8 line-ins. You have 4 line-ins. So you have 8 inputs, 4 pre's in the front, and 4 line-ins in the back. And you can lock that to your main converter. So basically, you're using the same converter, the same sound that you're used to, but you're expanding your inputs and getting really, really nice pre's. These ones are cool because you have insert points. So if you have like guitar effects and stuff, just pop it in there. It's got an LA2A limiter built right in, and it's also got 1176. So bass and slow vocals, fast rappy or drums, whatever you want. You can then tone shape as well. So you can do transistor, which is adding edge. You can do tube, which is adding fatness and vintage warmth. You can go anywhere in between. Bob's your uncle, just fucking, blend whatever to your heart's desire. And then when wanting more compression, you basically just turn the nipples in this way. If you want less compression, turn the nipples out. So usually I'm doing this with 2 hands, but my hand's holding the camera. But you can imagine, have 2 hands, and you just turn them both in and turn them both out like that. More compression, less compression. Type of compression, type of tone, effects if you want, done, right? So you have 4 channels of that, and working with the converters that you're already used to. So nothing changes with your sound, you just get more options and more inputs. So if you're starting a studio, this should be every studio's first purchase. Okay, so for those of you mastering guys out there who are looking to get into the hardware game, I would recommend considering the Dangerous Compressor as one of your first. Because gain staging into hardware is a little bit different than in a box. It takes a little bit getting used to. And second, if you're not sure how much you're knocking off, if you're not sure if you're doing too much, this compressor has some smart features that allow you to help you to do that. So Smart Dyne detects long and short-term transients, so it takes care of that for you. One of the features I like about this compressor as a standalone unit is you are able to knock off 20 dB of gain reduction and not be able to hear it. And that's because of the dual release feature. Now, speaking of the dual release feature, this is one of the really cool workflows of this compressor. Is, you know, within seconds, if you hit stereo, it links the gain and threshold as highlighted in orange. So this doesn't work anymore once you have them linked. But the sidechains don't get linked. So say, for example, if a ghost or phantom kick shows up in the left side as a transient for some reason, that side ducks. The entire song doesn't duck to the left and follow in shift. It actually maintains its stereo image dead center really well. And on top of that, speaking of the release, the attack and release still remain separate. So say, for example, if you're using it in mid-side mode, maybe your sides you can have a slower release so it has more movement, and a faster attack and release for more excitement in the middle. If you're using it in stereo material, say for example for classical music, there's a timpani section that's slightly to the left, maybe there's a different release timing for that, and then horn section and string section will have different attack and release settings. If you have no fucking idea what you're doing, then you just turn off manual release, and this will just auto release each side individually as well. So yeah, this compressor is really good for that. Hit stereo, turn the threshold, and then see how much gain you're knocking off. That sounds good. Make it up, and then you're good to go. Bypass, take it in and out, and then go from there. Easy, done. Spaghetti sauce.